My Lords, as I listened to the noble lady, the Minister, lay out the government's rather quaint, old-fashioned plans for Heathrow expansion with its over-optimistic, fantastical mitigation factors, I did listen with horror and felt that the government has not learned any lessons from all the court cases it's been taken through on issues like climate change. The fact is that the benefits, so-called benefits for Heathrow expansion, cannot possibly measure up to the disbenefits that will happen for the bulk of society, not just the people around the airport, but for the bulk of us who are going to end up paying for a lot of the measures that Heathrow would like to see implemented. And so for starters, Heathrow expansion will be bad for air pollution. The expansion will negate all the measures that the current Mayor of London is putting in place for in and around London. It is impossible to keep within his plans if Heathrow expansion goes ahead. Heathrow is already a pollution hotspot that breaches legal limits. Heathrow's plans include schemes that have yet to be identified, yet to be laid out clearly, and they are making all sorts of optimistic claims about public transport use. Now, I really would like to hear, I'm not sure if the noble lady, the Minister, did lay this out, but I would like to hear if or how much Heathrow Airport is actually planning to subsidise the public transport by, because quite honestly, you cannot expect Transport for London and London taxpayers and taxpayers all over the UK to pay for this extension of public transport. What is definitely in the plans is expanded car parking with at least 40,000 to 60,000 extra vehicles a day on the roads. Air pollution from Heathrow with this expanded road capacity is going to shorten people's lives. There is absolutely no way around it. Noise from Heathrow currently impacts on 1.5 million people, and that's based on World Health Organization standard levels. It doesn't just impact around the airport. It's marvellous that a lot of insulation is going to be put in for houses around there, but quite honestly, everybody in London at some point gets impacted by noise levels from flights going overhead. And the figure that we were given of £40 million to insulate some local schools, I think that is an absolutely paltry sum which will come nowhere near it. And if you add that to the fact that children obviously have to go outside to play, will be playing in dirtier air, in noisier playgrounds, then really I just don't see how Heathrow Airport can justify any of its expansion. A fully operational 3-runway airport, open from 5:30 a.m, could mean that night flights jump by a third. Now, the safeguards that should be in the NPS simply aren't there, and the final decision about flight paths isn't taken until after the NPS is signed off. So how can the government be sure that any of those mitigating factors are actually going to be valid? There are currently 102,000 people living around Heathrow who are exposed to very high levels of noise. They are up to 20% more likely to suffer a stroke or heart disease than normal. Again, the noise reduction from insulation might be very effective when they're in their houses. What about when they want to go to the shops or travel somewhere locally? Insulation won't help them then. Although headphones, I guess, might help if Heathrow Airport would like to supply a pair to every single resident. The NPS forecast is that there will be 5 domestic routes, down from 8 currently. That means regional airport capacity will shrink. Now, that's actually an optimistic forecast, which ignores what will happen if a future government enforces a cap on climate change gases, and aviation will be hit by increased charges. And so if unmanaged, Heathrow expansion will increase climate change gases by a third. How does the government feel that that can be justified? Does the UK economy even benefit from Heathrow expansion? In fact, it probably won't, but the owners of Heathrow will. Over half the new passengers will never leave the Heathrow shopping mall, as they'll be on international connecting flights. The benefit might go into a few outlets, a few shops, but the general population will absolutely not benefit from more jobs, more sales. The NPS also includes tunnelling the M25 and diverting some major roads. I would like to know just how much Heathrow Airport is putting into that expense as well. I would like some clear figures, because obviously it's been very difficult to get these figures. The upgrading of trains in Western and Southern Rail are mere aspirations, yet there are meant to be an extra 200,000 extra trips per day by public transport, a lot of them relying on the Metropolitan line and the Elizabeth line, which are being expanded to cope with other overcrowding problems already. I would like to read a few sentences. There's been a BBC report today by Roger Harrabin about 4 select committees that have actually been rather critical of some of the government actions. Four Commons committees, the Environment, Health, Transport and Environmental Audit committees, actually have been saying they want a new Clean Air Act and a Clean Air Fund financed by the motor industry. Now, this will impact on Heathrow expansion, because if that happens, then, or until it happens, Heathrow again will be in breach of all sorts of legal limits. I'd love to read the whole article because it's absolutely fascinating. But the report, and it's said to be the first time that 4 committees have collaborated in this way, urges the Treasury to take greater account of the costs of air pollution when setting tax and spend policy. But of course, allowing Heathrow expansion to go ahead is also something the government has to take into account, given that air pollution will almost certainly increase. It already has a huge impact on the NHS, not just now when people are dealing with heart problems and breathing problems, but for the future, because of the thousands of children whose lungs have been stunted by air pollution already and will need care far into the future from the NHS. The article also says, the government's long-term target of abolishing cars driven only by petrol and diesel by 2040 is also rather feeble. India has made the same pledge, but for 2030. There's also the fact that replacing cars for more cars is not necessarily the answer. Electric cars can also be polluting if their source of electricity isn't renewable. And finally, recent reports have drawn a possible link between attention deficit disorder, dementia and air pollution. So again, the air pollution is having an impact not only now, but far into the future, with future populations. And so, my lords, I'd like to finish by pointing out that there is no guarantee that air pollution won't get worse. In fact, we can probably guarantee that it will get worse. There's no guarantee that regional airports and jobs won't go into decline, as Heathrow favours international routes. Perhaps the government minister could mention that. There's no guarantee that taxpayers won't be landed with a multi-billion-pound bill to pay for new transport infrastructure to support Heathrow Airport. No guarantee that several 100,000 residents in the southeast, not just around the airport, in the southeast, won't find their sleep is even more disturbed than it is now. And no guarantee that climate change won't get worse as a result of Heathrow expansion. And so, quite honestly, my lords, this national policy statement on Heathrow is a joke. It is an old-fashioned way of thinking about the problems that we face, and really it's time the government actually started thinking in a very much greener way.
Yeah.
Sweetie.